If you've ever wanted to build a voice AI agent but feel like you've hit a wall, the truth is you can build almost any voice agent using Retell AI, and the secret's hiding in plain sight. If you're new here, my name's Tommy Christ. I'm the founder of Arose AI, where we've automated over 400,000 calls using voice AI technology, primarily using Retell AI as the backbone of doing it. And on this channel, I share everything I learn actually deploying voice agents inside of real companies. So Retell just made some big updates that make it way easier to vibe code voice agents actually build outside of their normal no-code builder. Now, the secret to actually doing that is knowing how to really utilize their documentation. And before you click away, I get it. Docs can feel boring, intimidating, confusing. I mean, you just want to plug everything into ChatGPT and make it work for you. But whether you've never heard of documentation before, whether you've gone in there and been intimidated, or you consider yourself an expert, I promise you there's something you can learn from this video. And so no matter where you're at, I'll show you how to properly utilize documentation, fully understand what it actually says, so that you can build faster, troubleshoot smarter, and actually build whatever you want inside of Retell AI and building voice agents. So here's the plan. First, I'll actually go into what docs really are and why they matter. Then I'll show you around the Retell docs and show you sort of how to navigate that, including the huge update Retell just did. Then after that, I'll show you how to actually build something using the documentation, and you can build it side by side with me, as well as how I'd actually go about troubleshooting a specific problem and finding the solution inside of the documentation. So with all that said, let's actually hop into the video. And for today's video, I threw together a quick little slideshow to walk us through it. So why is this video so important if you want to build AI voice agents? Because documentation is scary, but only because it has a lot of useful information that can be really intimidating when it comes all at you at once. Because documentation, simply put, is the public instructions a company creates for actually use their software correctly and what everything means. Think of it like a recipe. You can just throw a bunch of random stuff in a pan, but if you want a 5-star meal, you follow the instructions. And documentation is the exact same. You can just hop into Retell, start building stuff, but if you really want to make it the way it's intended and the best it can be, you want to follow the documentation. And so this video is the instructions for how to use the instructions. So it's important if you want to, really learn, dive deep, and build this skill and understand what you're building. And documentation is also how you go from this website where you have this little phone number up at the top that you have to type into your phone, to this, which, shameless plug, this is my website. You can find it linked down below. And on my website, I have this little widget where you can click this, you start talking to an AI voice agent. I had to build that using the Retell API and documentation. And so you're able to do a bunch of really cool things with the documentation, pretty much anything you want in terms of like a voice agent that you aren't able to do inside of, Retell AI's native no-code builder that you get when you go on their website. So who is this video for? So first, it's for owners, people who own a business and, are thinking about starting an AI voice project, and either they're doing the initiative themselves or, they want a deeper understanding of, how their team can actually build this and what they can build. Operators, so that's similar to owners, except, people who might be in a bigger organization and sort of are doing this initiative, this AI initiative in a specific department. Then lastly, developers or agencies like myself who are building these solutions for different businesses. And then lastly, people are just curious about AI. Maybe this is a passion project, something you're curious about, and you want to get better at it. If you fit into any of those categories, thankfully you are watching this video because it's for you. And then lastly, if you want an AI voice agent, make sure to book a call down below and we can potentially work together. And so, yeah, you'll see the rest of the information. So what are docs? A crash course. And this will be like a 2-slide crash course. So the anatomy of documentation, very simply, this can depend on the company, but companies have gotten a lot better at it recently, is having some sort of getting started page where it tells you the setup steps and, a first example to get your feet wet using their software. Features and options, sort of explaining what the tool can actually do. An API reference, which is a full list of API endpoints. If you aren't familiar with what an API is, I recommend you look it up, but I'll also explain it very simply and you'll see it in the actual examples. And then speaking of examples, they'll have sort of like copy paste samples to actually try out so that you know exactly or what you're supposed to be doing. You can see an example of it. Then lastly, troubleshooting, they'll commonly have a section like common errors, fixes, frequently asked questions, stuff like that. So why does documentation exist? One, it saves hours of trial and error for the user because they can look up sort of this quote, quote, holy Bible of what this company says, how you're actually supposed to use their platform and how it works. It helps you solve problems on your own instead of, reaching out to their support and having to rely on the actual company to give you feedback and fix it for you. It allows you to build with a lot more confidence because it says it in their docs. It's probably what you're supposed to be doing anyways. And using documentation allows you to be a lot more flexible than just the no code or general application that a lot of softwares have. And so what I mean by that is documentation is usually the place you go when you want to do something a bit more complicated or a bit more custom. And so it allows you to do all of that without them having to, clutter their main product. Then lastly, it really just lets you create and customize things exactly how you want. And this is specifically the case for, a bunch of AI agent builders like Retell AI. And so why does this specifically matter for voice AI? And it's because of this niche problem reality. Because at the start, maybe you want to build an AI receptionist. No code tools feel like enough. You sort of drag, drop, you create a prompt and then it seems like things are all right. But once you want something custom or want to go sort of beyond the basics, you hit a lot of roadblocks in that simple no code builder. And so I actually want to just show you real quick what I actually mean by the no code builder. So here, what you're looking at is Retell AI, and you can see like they have this prompt, they have a bunch of, settings over here and all this fun stuff. And so this is the no code builder, and you can do a lot with this, including, attaching it to a phone number and, actually putting an agent into production. But this agent actually lives on my website, and there's no way to do that through this no code builder. So since I wanted something custom, something, a bit more complex, I had to use their documentation and their API to actually do that. So this is what I mean when I'm talking about their no code builder, just for context. And then continuing with these points, every project eventually has some weird one-off problem that usually can't be solved in the no code builder. And so just be aware of that. I can't predict what that problem will be for you specifically, but just know every project will have one. And docs are really the only place that show you how to handle those edge cases and these sort of niche problems. And that's exactly why serious builders and people are actually, becoming skilled at building voice AI agents end up living in the docs. I can tell you every project I go to, I have to be in the documentation for some reason or another. And some projects, you're practically living in there. And I know the Retell docs, inside and out by this point, except they do update them a lot. And the truth is, I wasn't always this way. I used to actually have a lot of beef with documentation. And when I first started building these agents, I actually leaned heavily on their Discord for support and, community support, stuff like that. And anytime I was stuck because I didn't come in knowing how to code or read documentation, this is just about like 18 months ago. And I dropped my question in there, and there's always like this specific guy would never give me a straight answer. He'd just like send a link and be like, read the docs, man. Like it'll help you out, and whatever. And it used to make me so mad. I remember just thinking like, why can't you just tell me what to do? Like you clearly know how to do it. And now fast forward 18 months later, and I totally get it. If I could go back, I'd tell myself the exact same thing, to just read the docs, because the docs really aren't the answer to just one problem, although they might be in that moment. They're actually the map to all the other problems you're going to run into if you're going to be building these things and understanding really how they work. So getting over that learning curve is what really changed things for me when building these AI agents. So if you look up docs.retelai.com, it'll bring you to this page, which is Retell AI's documentation. And on this page, you can see the introduction here and everything you need. And then, any other information. So if you want to get better responses from your LLM, they have a little prompt engineering guide here and, best practices, a lot of cool stuff like that, that can, help you advance in a lot of the like soft skills regarding building voice agents. They also have stuff on, all their pricing and links to their pricing page. If you need an enterprise plan, it takes you there. And so this is really the hub for all the information you might need. They also have this search bar. So say you needed something on like function calling, and then you can see the function calling overview there, find it really quick so that you don't have to, dig for it in here. Now, these are all nice, and you'll pick up these tips and tricks along the way and sort of figure out what all the features are. But the most important part of any documentation is usually the API reference. And so, in short, an API is basically a way for you to create your own sort of web app and interact with, another software like Retell AI. So, for example, you can come in, create a voice agent inside Retell AI, and then, without having to do it from their dashboard, you can create your own app that uses that voice agent. Just how my website uses that voice agent inside the actual website using code. And so I'm actually going to show you really quickly how to actually build that voice agent on the website using this documentation. Okay, so right now I'm inside the no code builder make.com. If you also use something like Zapier or N8N, it works pretty much the exact same. And this is actually a very simple automation I'm about to create. So I'll just call this YouTube web call. And you can see here what you'll want to do is create a quick webhook, a custom webhook here. And then I'll just add this and be like YouTube webhook. Save that. And what we'll want to do is actually create this HTTP module. And we'll want to make a request. And now what you'll see here is, a URL, a method, a body type, all this stuff that might look really confusing to you. And this is basically the format of an API call. Now, if you come over here and see, we want to create a web call because we want to put this agent on a website. I'll show you how to do that in a second after we get this automation working. And you can see this actually has all the information you need. So you can see this little post. That's actually the method. So post, you can see the URL there, but you might not know that automatically. What you can do is you can hit copy this page. You can also just open it ChatGPT, view it as Markdown, copy the page, open it in Claude, connect it to an actual MCP server on Cursor. But I'm just going to copy the page and, manually paste it into ChatGPT. Now I'm going to say, I want to create an API call using this endpoint. What do I need for all of this info? And then what I'm going to do is actually take a quick screenshot of this HTTP module, and it'll actually tell me everything I need because ChatGPT has a very good understanding of what this documentation is. And so this is actually the brand new feature Retell has, the ability to copy docs straight into something like ChatGPT and it being able to recognize it very well. And so here you go. So you can see the URL we need, boom, copy this. And as I'm actually copying this in, you can see gives you the full JSON body you actually want to use and some example requests and everything like that and a bunch more info that you need. And so boom, you can see in just a couple seconds, ChatGPT told us exactly what to fill out here. And so all you need now is to actually find your Retell API key and the agent ID you want to use. And so if I go into Retell, you can find your API keys by coming to settings and API keys. Now I'm going to create a completely new key, just called YouTube, create that. I will copy that key, put it here. And then you also need an agent ID. You can find your agent ID up here and, paste that in right there. Now, let me see, because what you actually need to do also is, send some information back, a webhook response. And I want to be like, well, first, actually, let's see if this actually runs. You can see this did run successfully with a 201 status code. And now what I'm going to find out is ran with a 201. What do I need to send in the webhook response, if anything? I don't think it fully understands the context of what we're doing. So I want to say I am putting this on a website. How will the website recognize and pass through the web call? So you can see ChatGPT here recognize, hey, you actually need the access token to pass through your front end. You can see that also is in the documentation here, where this is access token to enter the web call room, and this needs to be passed to your front end to actually join the call. You can also see here that you need this call ID, which is used to identify the LLM WebSocket. I don't know what that means, but it's basically used to authenticate the audio. And so what you need to do here is then come into here and make sure to pass both of those through. And so you can see in this data, it actually has all that information, except we forgot to parse the response. So when I hit parse response, yes, save that, run this again. And you can see all this data is now able to be used. And I already copy and pasted it, but you basically want some JSON that looks like this, where you can see the access token is being passed through, and you have this correctly mapped to the access token. Then the call ID is also being passed through, and you have access to that here. So now you have a webhook connected to an active web call. And now here you can actually see I have a full lovable prompt for actually installing this web call agent onto your website using vibe coding. And this is from a previous video I made. I'll make sure to also link it in my school community for this video. That's linked down below, and you can find all the free resources I have. So let's take this prompt, throw it in here. I want to say, create me a demo website, and do this. The webhook to trigger the web call is, and then I'm going to paste in this webhook. I'm also going to say, make a button on the landing page to start a web call and talk to the AI. So now I'll give it a couple minutes for Lovable to actually create everything. And now that Lovable is done, let's see that it actually works. Let's start this call.
Thank you for waking me up. I was starting to think no one would click on me today. What can I help you with?
Hey, I was just wondering how your day is going.
Bright-eyed and page ready. Thanks for checking in. I live on this page, so my day is going great. How can I help you today?
Perfect. And now you can see really the power of using documentation and using the APIs and everything you can learn to actually build something fully custom like this, vibe coded, really just making it super simple using AI. Now, another thing you'll run into are obviously problems along the way. And I can't give you a complete troubleshooting guide because every problem you're going to run into will be unique, but I'll give you something super simple right now that you can do. So let's say you forgot to put your API key. And so now it just says bear with no API key. You don't even need to know what an API key is. Honestly, it's better if you don't for this example. So let's run this function. So this is what would happen if, I click this button once again, it won't start the call. It actually fails at starting the call now because we got rid of this API token. So you see this error, what should you do? You have no idea where to even start. Let's come back over to our trusty friend ChatGPT. Let's copy this page once again. And so let's paste this in. So let's say these are the docs. Now help me with this error and tell me what is wrong. Here is the error. Boom, boom, boom. You can come in, just copy and paste this error. Another pro tip, here is the input bundle, is if it's ever anything complicated, you might want to actually take this input bundle, which is basically what you sent to Retell, all that information, and paste it in here. So it just has a bit more context on what you actually sent and if there's an issue specifically in there. And so boom, you can see it tells us exactly what's wrong. There's an empty bearer token, which is correct. There's no API key here. And you actually have to put my API key, and it tells me how to fix it and what the actual corrected bundle should look like. And so that's how you troubleshoot these voice AI agents using the documentation. If you want to keep learning, join AA Academy. It's linked down below. As well as if you actually want to work with me, definitely make sure to book a call down below, describe exactly what you want me to build, and we can hop on a call and we can see if we can work together. So thank you for watching this video, and I hope you have a great day.